Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Let me introduce myself and my business partner. My name is Annette Reynolds, and my partner is
Lynn Cohen.
And we've been business partners for 3 years. And about 2 years ago, we started our own real estate brokerage, Team Impressa. But while we were in that process, we were speaking one day. We are seniors, we're both in our 70s, and we were discussing, should we stay in our homes or should we downsize? And it's an important consideration for us and our families. Ironically, we chose different paths. Today, we're going to talk about the decisions we faced as we continue to grow older. And our objective is to highlight the options that you have when making these very big decisions. Most importantly, before we talk about our experiences, we want to recommend that you gather a team around you to help decipher some of the ramifications of the decisions you're going to make. This team might include a financial advisor, an attorney who specializes in seniors issues, and an accountant, because you don't want to make any decisions that will jeopardize your well-being in future years, and you want to be well informed. Now, I said that Lynn and I made different decisions. I decided to stay in my home. She decided she was going to downsize. Now, I have been in my home for 21 years, and it's the 13th home I've lived in since I've been married, and I don't ever want to move again. Last time my husband had me driving up 128 in a diesel truck. He decided that it was only a local move from Milton to Waltham and that we could do it. And as I said, I will never do that again.
But I would have loved to have been there to see it.
Hey, I'm a good driver.
Still.
But the driving was the easy part. It was the packing and the unpacking again. But at any rate, I'm in my house. Lynn, you've been to my house. It's nothing fancy. It's
adorable.
It's a small little house. We've put a lot of work into it. But more importantly, it's a gathering place for the family. I'm not more than about 35 minutes from any of my grandkids. And they all come together. We'll be together for Thanksgiving this year, just because it's a central place. But there are some challenges, though, because as much as I love the house, I'm really lucky Fred does all of the yard work and the upkeep and everything else. So as long as we're healthy, we're going to be there. However, it's a 2-story home.
And you just got a new knee.
I had a new knee. And this is one of the things we had to take into consideration. What are we going to do? Well, I have a room that was my office, and we turned it back into a bedroom. And it's right next door to the bathroom, and it's around the corner from the kitchen, so it's a perfect setup. Now, if I'd wanted to stay in my regular bedroom upstairs, I had a couple of options. I could climb up the steps one by one, which
may not be the worst option if you can.
But I could have also put a stair lift
in.
And for it's short money. It's a few $1,000s, and I could just ride up and down the steps, and it would provide a kind of like a circus ride for the grandgirls who were young. They would just love that.
They would have loved that.
Okay. But that was one accommodation. Another one, do you remember when we did this program the first time?
Yes.
We had an architect who specialized in making homes accessible so that people could stay in them. I mean, if there's a physical limitation of getting into the bathtub, then
it's easily, well, I'm really good at other people's money, but it's really easy to make an adjustment, widen the doors, add some grab bars, and lower the threshold so you can even roll into the shower if you needed to.
Yeah. But one of the other things he suggested, and we both looked at him like he was crazy at the time, but he suggested that you may want to put an elevator in.
And we both thought that was nuts. We really did.
And then we started looking at what's the cost. Well, the cost can be expensive. I've seen ads recently for relatively inexpensive ones at $20,000 to $25,000. And to put in a standard type elevator, it could be anywhere from 40 to 50 or $60,000, which sounds like, and it is a lot of money. However,
If you're committed to staying in your home and your home can accommodate this, it's a really small percentage of its overall value, and it enables you to stay put. So I wouldn't eliminate it.
no,
I mean,
no.
we actually last spring sold a house with an elevator in
Yeah.
it, which we found amazing because we'd been talking about it in these
Yeah.
programs for so long. And in that case, it was a multiple generation family, adult mom, grown son, and her parents that all wanted to live under one roof. The lower level was finished with an elevator, which enabled her parents to go up and down and enjoy dinner with the family, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a legal in-law apartment.
Right.
And it went up what, half a level or something
Right,
like that because
right.
of the way it was designed. But it was a first for you, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it really was.
And I guess the point of all of this is it opened up our minds to solutions we hadn't thought about. I mean, when we talk about the price of it, uh, I I usually describe my home as a crappy little home. It's a little lake cottage that's been expanded and nothing fancy in it, but it's worth $700,000. So if I had to take money out to put in an elevator so I wouldn't have to move again, it might be a very reasonable expense, and it adds value to the home as well.
Right.
Okay, which leads us to another question. I got $700,000 worth of equity value tied up in my home. If I need money to live, if I need money to do anything, how do I get it?
Well, you got a couple of options,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you took one because you were working and could qualify for.
Well, my bank had a sale on money.
I know.
And when does the bank have a sale on money?
Yeah, really.
Seriously, for $75, they gave me a mortgage. We call it a HELOC or a home equity line of credit. But I can write a check for up to $100,000 and not blink an eye because they said, hey, you are credit worthy. And it is an option. However, it is a mortgage as well. And I went through the same process that anybody does with the mortgage. I filled out the application. I had to provide proof of income. I was going to say employment, but mostly income.
Right.
And I gave them tax returns, and they looked at a whole bunch of stuff, my credit rating, and they decided we were credit worthy. So I was able to get and maintain that line of credit. And I haven't used it. Fred was funny. He said, I don't want any more debt. I said, honey, it's not debt until you use it.
Okay. Right.
And it cost me $75 a year to maintain, which is the least expensive mortgage I've ever heard of.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it gives you some peace of mind if you had an emergency.
I just write that check.
Exactly.
Okay. But what do you do if all of your assets or your only asset is your home? That's where the money is. Because if you go to a bank to ask for a line of credit or a second mortgage, the first question they ask is, how are you going to repay me? And you don't need to have a job to be able to repay. You may have income from your retirement accounts, pensions, or what have you. But if you don't have that, you're in a pickle.
Or if you don't have enough to cover what you need to live plus a mortgage payment, you'll be declined. So I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How many horror stories have you heard about something called a reverse mortgage?
Well, I do know that during the big crash, they were horrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
People stayed away from them afterwards because they heard so many horror stories.
Right.
And truth be told, some of that has to do with the way it wasn't the reverse mortgage, but how people use them.
Exactly. And also the failure on the banks at the time to properly inform people as to the ramifications. A reverse mortgage is simply a mortgage like any other, with one key difference: you're not required to pay it back.
What do you mean? You borrow the money, you don't have to give it back?
As long as you are living in the house, and you maintain the house and pay the taxes, you're not required to pay it back until such a time as you leave the home. You choose to sell it, or you
die.
haven't, or I hate to talk like that.
But we're old
But
people, we know about
we
that.
know it, right. And right after the crash of 2005 to 2008, the federal government stepped in and regulated reverse mortgage. And the main regulation, the main change they made was to require extensive counseling, not only from the borrowers themselves, but from their heirs, so that everybody knew that the principal amount of the loan, plus any interest that accrued over the years, would have to be paid back at the time that the house was sold. The banks essentially will loan you an amount based on actuarial tables that say that you'll be out of there before there's no value left.
But what happens if you outlive their estimates?
Yay! Well,
we both intend to.
Yeah, we both definitely intend to. Well, in that case, they are protected because one of your closing costs is an insurance policy that guarantees that the bank can get out whole. So this isn't a cheap loan. Your closing costs could be upwards of $15,000 to $20,000. That amount could be rolled into the loan, so you're not out of pocket. But for some people, it's a wonderful solution that should be explored. I mean, Annette and I worked with a client who was living in a condo that was worth what, $750, and she was on food stamps. That's crazy.
All of her net worth was in her
Exactly.
home.
And she couldn't tap it. So in her case, after this counseling, she decided she'd rather sell it. She had other health considerations. It was a 3-story walk-up. But if that hadn't have been the case, a reverse mortgage might have been perfect for her.
Actually, I think that it was one of our reverse mortgage lenders who
referred her to us. Now, in her case, she was in a 3-story walk-up. She made the decision to sell, and we'll talk about where you can go in a little while. But if she had chosen to stay, the reverse mortgage would have allowed her to stay, have a comfortable life.
Yeah, she could have probably gotten close to $400,000 accessible. And I say that because you don't have to take it all out at once, do you?
No, you can use it like an equity line, and take a couple of $1,000 a month as you need to sustain yourself. Or you could take a lump sum out and go on a trip, go on a great vacation. It's just that you want to meter how you use this money so that it lasts longer than you do.
Who's eligible for reverse mortgage now?
Anyone 62 and over who has at least 50% equity
in their homes.
In their
home.
home.
Sounds good. Again, we get a lot of pushback from people who've heard really horrible things about reverse mortgages, and there's truth in the stories,
right?
But it is a destiny, and it has been really a very useful tool for some. Did I tell you about the fellow who wanted to sell his condo so he had money for his partner's medical expenses? Yeah. And we could have gotten a fair amount of money out of the equity of the condo. And then I said to him, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go after you sell the condo? He says, I want to buy another one just like this. And again, he saw where his value was, but he didn't figure it
That
all
just
out.
doesn't
It
compute.
doesn't compute.
Right.
Again, for him, the reverse mortgage would have been an ideal situation.
Right. So I would say in closing off this little segment, that it should be one of the arrows in your quiver,
Mhm.
that you want to be able to look at all your options if you choose to stay. You could take a reverse mortgage and hire an architect and
Yeah.
pay for the renovations that would allow you to stay.
Okay. But Lynn, I decided to stay. You decided to downsize. Tell us about that.
Well, we had lived in a condo that my husband actually bought before I married him for 30 years. And it was a lovely large condo, 1,800 feet in a quote unquote luxury building in Chestnut Hill. And we really enjoyed our time there. But over time, our condo fee was creeping up. And by the time we sold it, it was $2,000 a month.
It's a lot of money.
It started to get crazy. And we had had assessments over the years, and there was talk of more. And we were managing it just fine at the time. But we started to talk about what would happen. Could we manage it if one of us got ill or if one of us was alone? And my husband said, nah, I'm not moving. I'm not moving. Our home was within 1.5 miles of his boyhood home. This was his hood. He doesn't make change easily. When they say opposites attract, this is the truth. I make change very easily. I just keep going. And he really struggled with it. So ultimately, I made him a bet. I bet him that I could sell our current home, find us something we'd be equally happy with 6 or 7 miles west of Newton, and give him half the value to put in the bank for retirement. And he thought that was impossible. He said, ha, 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 but go for it. And within a week,
It wasn't very long.
we sold the place. That's when the fun began, to be honest with you. I misjudged how hard it would be. I started to open my cabinets and cupboards and closets to get ready to pack and to move. And I was totally shocked at how much stuff I had. I mean, it was just crazy, and stuff that nobody wanted. I had my dishes, my mother's dishes, my grandmother's dishes, actually 2 sets for my grandmother. It was insane, and my kids just didn't want any of the furniture, wanted nothing.
It's a challenge.
In doing these programs, I think that we hear more about how do I get rid of my stuff more than anything else. It really resonates. So after a couple of weeks of trying to manage the process myself, I gave up and I called an organizer. Wow, it was the best money spent. It really was. And there are all kinds of organizers who can help you with this.
Yeah.
We had one experience where the organizer just needed to give our client a plan.
Yeah, it was kind of like taking that first, if she could take the first step, everything else would follow.
And if you're less than able-bodied, there are organizers who come in with a crew, help you decide what to stay, what should go, and actually supervise the packing and removal of those things. It can get pricey, but boy, it would be worth it.
Yeah. And there is an association of organizers. There is a certification. You know what I find, Lynn, is that people say, well, I can do this.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said.
And do you remember what happened with the house that was recently sold?
Yeah.
She had a lot of stuff in it. I mean, when you stay in a home for 15 or 20 years, you accumulate stuff. We don't throw things out because we might need them. Are they perfectly good? Why should I throw them out? Who do I give them away to? And there's just so much stuff. And I think she spent one day trying to do it herself before she broke down and hired an
Exactly.
organizer to get it done. The other thing I find is I'm going through the stuff, all the memories, and I'm telling everybody about when we got this little box and
Yeah, you end up getting sidetracked with a box of old
Memory lane.
pictures
Memory
and
lane.
the day is gone and you've done nothing.
yeah.
So as a result of this, I made a couple of golden rules for myself. The first was, if I really love it and I really cherish it, then I can move it, but then I damn well better use it. So I found that when I have a glass of wine in the evening, it tastes much better out of crystal. It really does. And I enjoy the things that I moved. And the other is that I never want to be so overwhelmed by stuff again. So now anytime anything comes into the house, two like-kind items have to go.
Well, I tried to give you that t-shirt and you wouldn't take it. They were lovely t-shirts
Yes,
too.
it really was, but I had just bought a new t-shirt and gotten rid of all the old ones I wanted to. And I knew that if I brought it home, I'd have to give up to something else. I said, nope,
Well,
not doing it.
You know, it was funny. We've been doing these programs for a couple of years now. And we went back to do a follow-up program at one of the senior centers we'd been at a year ago. And this little old lady comes up to me and she said, yeah, I was going to get some new stuff, but I didn't want to throw any away.
Yeah, there you go.
So-
But it has served me very well, to be honest with you. The last thing we want to do is burden our children when we're gone with disposing of stuff nobody wants. So,
Yeah. But what about other things like furniture and collectibles? I didn't bring my Hummel with me today.
well, there are organizations that will help you dispose of them. For example, there is a little consignment store in Waltham called Buy or Consign, and they will actually come and pick up your furniture, put it in their consignment shop. If it doesn't sell in 60 days, then you'll get a donation slip. If it sells, you'll get a check. But that was the biggest help of all.
Well, they came in and took all the
They
stuff.
came
didn't
and
they?
took anything and everything that I didn't want.
And I found a great place in Acton
Mhm.
called Home Furnish. I'll have to look it up. But
Okay.
at any rate,
And by the way, you can access all of our resources, organizers, attorneys, architects, by going to our website, www.downsizeorstay.com.
okay, you
And
can see you can see it on the screen here
Right.
too.
And just download our resource list.
It's householdgoods.org.
There,
It
I
took
knew
me a
you'd come
second.
back.
And I called. They have certain days for donations. I had replaced my china because I like them all to look alike. Well, I raised 3 boys, and for many years I did not have very expensive china because it was very difficult to keep it intact. So they're all grown now, and I got myself brand new stoneware, and I didn't want to throw out the old stuff. Most of it was still pretty good, and the same with the flatware. And I drove up. They opened the back door, took the stuff out, gave me a receipt. It was so painless.
Right.
So painless. And there are other organizations that will do the same as
Right.
well. And we have some of them on the resource list. So, you know, what my sister did.
Yeah.
She recently moved from Pennsylvania down to stay full-time in their home in Florida. No more being a snowbird. She hired a firm that came into the house, took pictures of what they wanted to get rid of, and conducted an online auction. And she was so funny. She kept saying, that dining room set of mine, I mean, she'd only had it 45 years, right? And she said they only offered $7 for it. I think it's worth more than that, which tells you something about the value of old furniture. And she said it kind of tongue in cheek because she couldn't move it. She had a fully furnished place
It
down
would
in
cost her
Florida.
more to move it than it was worth.
Absolutely. And the way that worked is she got a percentage of whatever was sold, and the company would take anything left over out and not charge her for it.
And that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And there are companies in our area that will do that as well.
So it's just a matter of looking for them, giving the call and finding out what it takes.
Right.
Okay. So let's say I decide to put my home on the market. What do I have to do?
Oh, well, you have to first of all have a plan and know where you want to go. We've never had a homeless client.
Not
have
yet.
we? Not yet. And please God, never. But you really want to have a good sense of where you're going and how to time your move.
Yeah. Did you see the movie Nomadland?
No.
It has to do with people who basically live in small movable homes. And somebody said, then your kids can't come home to live with you because they don't know where you are.
That's priceless.
And there's actually a whole communities of it.
Small homes.
Many people, not many, some people opt for that. And I tell you the truth, I've thought of the idea of getting myself a big travel trailer and just seeing this gorgeous country of ours. And I heard of people who do it and it works for a while and then they get tired of it. But others just go from campground to wherever they want to be. And it's an interesting lifestyle choice, okay?
But you do have options.
Yeah.
You could go to a continuous care retirement facility, CCRC community.
Yeah.
You could purchase a smaller home that's got a layout that's conducive to you staying there.
Well, that's what you did.
Yeah, essentially, I moved from 1,800 feet, believe it or not, to 2,200 feet. And I still put that money away. That was pretty good, just by moving 6 miles west. But we moved into a townhome with a first floor master suite. And I have an upstairs loft with a bedroom and bath and sitting area. So when my kids come to visit, I can send them upstairs. We have our privacy, they have theirs, and it works very, very well for us.
So you purchased.
I did.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to think about continuous care.
It's it's a different lifestyle. And we know that at least one of our recent clients opted for that. Now he needed assisted living too. He needed help. But these continuous care retirement communities have a whole array where you can come in with independent living. If you need it, you can get assisted living. And if necessary, you can get either nursing home care or memory care. And it depends on the facility. But the benefit, and my mother-in-law was in one of these, the benefit is that, number one, if you don't want to cook, you don't have to. They generally have meal plans there for you, as well as a kitchen in your unit. Many allow pets. And you have a built-in social group. In addition to eating with other people, they have lots of activities all of the time. They take bus trips. For many of these places have transportation to grocery stores, so you don't have to have a car unless you want it. So for some people, it is a wonderful, wonderful.
Well, and
choice.
as I get older, I think that if I were alone, I may opt to go into such a place while I was still healthy so that I don't burden my kids.
Yeah. So again, many choices here. With respect to condos, yours is very typical of many we see. It's considered a townhome, so you don't have people above you. You're not worried about people below you.
Right.
But everything you need is on one floor, including your laundry.
And I don't have landscaping, painting, worrying about the roof. All that is included in a much more realistic condo fee than I used to have.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So there are a lot of choices, and in another program, we will drill down on some of those. It's just too much for
Yes,
right
too
now.
much for today.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. If I sell my home, do I owe capital gains tax?
Well, that depends.
Yes.
That depends. First of all, a married couple is granted a one-time exemption of $500,000 of capital gain. So if you bought it for 200,000 30 years ago and it's worth 700,000 today, you wouldn't owe anything.
Mhm.
If you'd made improvements to it, a new kitchen,
It
new
changes your
furnace,
basis.
that adds to your basis. As a single person, that benefit is cut in half.
Mhm.
And I believe you get a 6-month grace period if you've been widowed, so that you can take the full
500,000.
500 if you
Mhm.
sell your place within 6 months of
Yeah.
being widowed. But we're not accountants. And
No.
we really would say this is when you need to talk to financial planners and accountants to make sure that your particular situation fits your needs.
Mhm. And do I need a trust?
Again, that's a question for a great elder care attorney, a wills and trust attorney. We put this place in trust, but I don't know your individual circumstances, right?
Well, I strongly recommend that you speak to somebody about it.
Right.
There are different types of trusts, benefits, positives and negatives. But I think what I like most about dealing with the lawyer who drew up our trust is he made sure our wills were current. He made sure we had durable medical powers of attorney,
Right.
That we had in line who would take care of us if we became disabled in any
Right.
way. Make decisions, estate executors, trust executors, medical and financial. So it's really worth the investment, and it wasn't that expensive to get it
Right.
done.
Right.
So
again, we're experts in real estate, but we're not attorneys and we're not accountants, and we don't play them on Zoom.
yeah, exactly. But we've covered a lot of ground here.
Mhm.
There are a lot of factors that go into making this decision. And the truth is, few of them are irrevocable, but you want to spend the time, get the counsel you need so you make the best decision for you and your family.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for your attention.
We'll see